before. Welcome, welcome. We'll do a quick roll call, starting with Andy Hartman.
Present.
Steve Douglas. Steve may be on mute, but you're here.
How about now?
There we go.
Present.
John Brandt.
I'm here.
Kevin Thusius, I do not see, and I am here. So 4 of the 5 of us are here. And hi, Brian. Good to see you.
Good evening.
So tonight's agenda is thus: we will check to see if there's any public comments, and assuming there is none, which I don't believe anybody else is joining us, and don't believe we have any public comments to share.
Tracy, would you like to publicly comment?
We're not there yet.
I'll let you know.
Melissa, I actually did have one thing to bring up. I guess could be used during the public comment section. It was from Jay, and it's regarding the switch over for the committee to the standing committee, and he just wanted me to confirm with the membership that everyone was wishing to stay on the committee when it switches over formally to the standing committee. And if so, there's a committee basic assignment where it'll be one seat will be a trustee. The second seat's going to be a 1-year term. Third seat will be a 2-year term. And then the 4th and 5th seats will be on 3-year alternating terms with the committee. So I just wanted to ask if everybody was who was present this evening looking to remain members of this committee, so I can share that information with Jay, and then he will pass on the I guess selection of who's in what spot in that committee rotation at one of the next board meetings.
Brian, I'm wondering if that you jumped the gun. That's okay. I was just going over the agenda to say there was going to be public comment. So I'm just going to hang on to that, and then we'll come back to that. So then the rest of the agenda is thus: we will have a chance for some committee member report outs and updates, and then we'll move it into review and possibly approving the January Sustainability Committee minutes. We will dive into the sustainability plan implementation, and then we'll get into a discussion about No May, which is coming up pretty quickly. Have a discussion on the green energy, the 100% clean energy resolution that we worked on and passed out of our committee last month. Talk about where that is and what our next steps are, and then we'll wrap up and get to next steps and adjourn. And we're gonna try to adjourn sometime close to about 7:15. So we'll see how far we get with all of these agenda items. So that's the plan for the evening. Now let's circle back to this public comment piece. And Brian, I know you already shared a little bit, and just kind of curious in terms of process, are you wanting folks to weigh in and give you a verbal indication on the meeting tonight, or is Jay going to follow up with us individually?
No, if people are, if members are willing to state that they are interested, I will take that tonight, or you can send me an email over the next few days, and I can share those, if you want to think about it, and then share that information with Jay sometime next week.
This is Steve. I'm interested.
Okay.
In staying aboard. I don't know, a 3-year term sounds long to me, so I'm more on the shorter end. Not that I don't want to continue to participate, but I don't know the formality of that. So there you go. That's Steve. You bet.
This is John. I would like to continue as well.
Okay.
Great. Andy, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are these term breakups typical of other committees, or is this, what is typical for, let's say, plan or for library board or?
Yeah, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that the committees do have these rotation assignments so that there isn't a vacancy of the entire committee at any given moment. So it's a little easier for the village president to make selections and appointments. So I think this is standard operating procedure. but I don't have that. No, I don't know the exact breakdown. So I'm trusting that that's kind of the way the other village committees are all established too.
Well, if you guys get in a pinch for membership in the coming years, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Andy. And Brian, I am too.
Perfect.
Terrific. Okay, any other public comment? All right, hearing none, I'm going to move us into general business for the night. And first up is committee member report outs and updates. Is there anything that folks have to share that's not part of an item that's already on the agenda?
I kind of do.
All right.
And Melissa, I think you know about this already. But at the last board meeting, I was listening in because I was interested in knowing what was going to happen to the sustainability committee. And one of the things that I heard was a lot of board members complaining might be too strong a word, but talking about, you know, vacancies on committees, things like that. And then Jay very, you know, specifically mentioned an empty spot on the finance committee. And I gave it some thought because I keep hearing about, you know, sustainability proposes something, and then Jay asks, well, what's it going to cost? Or, you know, and things like that. And so I volunteered to be on the finance committee as well. And I think I'm going to be. And I kind of like the you know, the way they both work together. You know, sustainability and finance. And so I just thought it would be helpful to know what Jay's thinking from a finance point of view when we're talking about things from a sustainability point of view. So I just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate that. And when will you know if that assignment has been made?
I think at this next board meeting.
That's correct.
I'm fairly certain.
Yes, I added that to our board agenda. So it is on the consent agenda for approval at this upcoming board meeting.
And I think it's as of April 1st.
Okay, great. Great. Well, we're looking forward to having somebody on the inside who can help us with some some advocacy and understanding.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's great, John.
Great.
Thanks for volunteering. We appreciate that.
Andy, I think I saw you unmute yourself too. Did you have a report?
Yeah, I think that that's a great idea. And thanks for stepping up as well. And then the only thing that I really thought would be worth highlighting from the last village board meeting pertaining to sustainability is we authorized Brian and the village to basically start writing grants to try and connect the bike path from the new development out on KP to the boardwalk trail at Sander Park. So anytime we're trying to increase walkability and transport by good old physical human power, you know, just thought I'd share that process out with everybody tonight.
Cool. So the action was to approve Brian to start writing grants for that.
Yeah, correct. And Brian,
Right.
you could probably chime in. It was a very specific grant I think we were looking at.
Yeah, so this was a stewardship grant through the DNR, which partners to protect land and or expand outdoor access for outdoor activities. So this reconstruction that the village is going to be undergoing on KP, and we're still trying to determine what year that's going to occur. But the point right now is there was village grant money or village money received through another different grant. And that money was going to be utilized for this path. But right now, I think the costs are still higher than what a lot of people would like to see. So the grant that the village board approved us to go after would be used with the express intent of combining grant monies to finish off this path if we were to be awarded that sum from the DNR.
Great. That's great news. Is there anything that we can do to support that?
On this one, I don't think there is. I think we've pretty much got from here the green light to go forward and put the grant together. So I don't think there's anything additional that we can submit to kind of to aid it along in the vetting process for consideration at this time.
Okay, great. Anything else in terms of report outs and updates?
I guess, Melissa, on that same note, one of the other grants that I put in for, which kind of is somewhat related to the sustainability, I did apply for a flood mitigation grant through the Wisconsin Emergency Management Department. And that grant, if the village receives that award, would be able to be utilized to kind of convert a piece of village-owned property up by the Creek Crossing subdivision to sort of help assist in taking away flood overflow, I suppose is the right way to look at that, to help it from coming down into the village and try to mitigate some of the ill effects from the flooding that especially occurred a few years ago, if it were ever to happen again. So that right now, I just received an update that is with FEMA, and they are completing their review for that particular grant.
Do you have any kind of timeline for when we might know?
That one I do not have. They said they wanted to have it implemented this year, but I don't know how fast the turnaround is. The last that they reached out to me, they were trying to get us to do a wetland delineation for the parcel of land, which apparently the village had done a few years prior. So some of that stuff I was exchanging with them. And I think they are going to be able to use the wetland delineation report that we had already completed from a few years prior, so we don't have to get a new one. So right now I don't have an estimate on that, but it's at least at the right place for the consideration.
Great. Anything else, Brian?
Not unless you want me to speak about the things that we were discussing on our Zoom call recently. That's kind of pertaining to a little later agenda topic.
Yeah, I think let's hold it for that topic.
No problem.
The only other thing I would just put out there as a report is because no one is running opposed for the open village seats in this upcoming spring election. Jay's in the process of trying to take input, which I believe is for the first time, on who would like to be assigned to which committee. And so if members of the Sustainability Committee have an opinion about who they would like to see chair the standing committee, I would recommend you reach out to Jay and at least throw that name out there so that it's on his radar.
That's that's good to hear that there's a process, there's an openness to some input. And I curious, maybe that's an offline conversation about who we might recommend to Jay.
I would be interested in knowing who is going to be on the, I'm not sure I know all the people, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't either, but I'm feeling like this is maybe an offline conversation. So let's hold this. I agree. Yeah, let's hold this for a different conversation. But thanks for the heads up, Andy. I appreciate that. All right. Anything else for report outs and updates? Then I'm going to move us on to the discussion and possible approval of the January 11th. Oh, we have the wrong year on our agenda. I'm still thinking it is 2022, but these are actually our 2023 meeting minutes. And have folks had the chance to review these? And if so, is there somebody willing to make a motion to approve?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from the January sustainability meeting.
And
Thank
Steve will
you,
second that.
Andy. Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That's all of us. Okay, minutes are passed unanimously. Thank you, Brian, for taking those and presenting them, sharing them. I want to do a little, I'm hoping it's okay since we're still an ad hoc committee that I can move the agenda items around a little bit, because I actually think that the discussion of no MOME and the village clean energy resolution might need to come ahead of the broader sustainability plan implementation. So I'm gonna use chair privilege and just move things around while we're still an ad hoc committee. And first up, I'm hoping let's tackle no MOME. As a reminder, what we talked about, what we did last year was it was a pilot program. We asked the village board to approve it. Village board approved it as a 1-year pilot, kind of a test program. We reported back at the end of no MOME. We did a brief presentation, talked about participation rates, and then that's it. We have not formally asked for it to be a ongoing thing, nor have we said it won't be. So I believe, this is my hypothesis, and Brian and others, please check me if I'm wrong, but I believe what we need to do at this point is, if we agree that we want to continue no MOME into the future, we need to make a recommendation or a motion that we make this a permanent program, or or maybe it's time limited, but we actually need to affirmatively say we want to bring this back now that we've had the pilot program.
When we did the report out after no MOME, we even said that we would be proposing that it become permanent.
Good reminder. Thanks, John. Okay, that's I hadn't remembered that we had actually finalized that, so that's good. Okay, is there in terms of process, anything else that folks want to weigh in on?
Whatever we kick to the village board, I would recommend we do for next month's meeting, and we put something in the language related to what portions of the village would actually participate, specifically related to like municipalities, the village hall, etc. Because I think there was an opportunity, maybe perhaps missed in the first year of implementation, to have the village promoting it more than individuals who chose to promote it in their own yards. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. How I walked past the village hall and somebody was mowing the lawn, and I was like, what? What is going on here? Yep, I know exactly what you're saying. So yeah, okay, so first of all, I just wanted to affirm, and John, thanks for jogging my memory, that the recommendation from our committee was and still is that we make this a permanent program. And that what we should do, Andy, what I'm hearing from you is we should get this in front of the board for their March meeting, and also include, kind of lay out what we're thinking in terms of which which locations or how the village will also participate.
Yeah, I think Mike Axon, Director of Parks, would, we talked about it when I was a member of that committee at the time that no MOME was being implemented in the village. And so I think he has concerns about if it was, Bear Park, for example. But I know that he would also like to support it in some way, shape, or form. So just trying to nail down what specific locations I think would be beneficial. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there other things that we need to talk about for no MOME? Steve, I know that you did a lot of the research, and then you had some thoughts afterward too about how to improve the process, I believe. Is there anything that you'd want to, how do you want to
Well, yeah, I don't know necessarily
improve
about
it.
improving the process. Maybe a couple things. So I guess what we're asking for is the freedom, the ability, whatever it is, to suspend the village ordinance on the height of lawn mowing. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what it boils down to, I think, just for
Yeah.
this certain period of time for those who want to participate. I mean, that's kind of it. But then Andy's got a good point. It's like, why not capitalize on these, some properties that the village has? I mean, you're right. We don't want to let, the outfield of Bear Park, overgrow and have the softball people, get upset about that, which is understandable. There's, a certain use for that, but there probably are some other areas. I don't know. What comes to mind is like, is it called Raspberry Park over at the St. Francis
Yep.
division? There's a
Mhm.
lot of sort of border areas there that potentially could be included. So that's a great idea. Yeah, to include some broader
Mhm.
village property. I got a full disclosure. I'm kind of sheepish about the whole thing. I honestly was as supportive as I am of the concept. I was one of those who really found it difficult to recover
Mm.
from it.
Mhm.
Especially on short notice. That really is a consideration if you have the right equipment or not. And I mean, fortunately, my father-in-law's like ironclad 25-year-old weed eater was the thing that got out of, because I had to go through and essentially, knock it down first and rake it and then mow. And it was hard. I mean, and I have a lot of lawn. I
Mhm.
do not feed it other than I mulch, and it
Mhm.
loves that mulch, and it is super thick. And so it was challenging for me. So I'm kind of thinking, what am I going to do this year?
Mhm.
I'm not going to do the whole thing, full
Mhm.
no mow May, but I'm thinking about a little layover on my sign that maybe says like some mow May, or low mow May, something like that. And then maybe do some strips, or, some kind of hybrid. I'm just been thinking in my mind. Because I tell you, it was actually tough for me. And again, I was by myself. My neighbor who was going to help with his rider ended up being out of town. I had COVID. It was like
Mm.
the worst cluster.
Mm.
But it was tough, honestly. And it's, and I don't have the kind of property that I can kind of easily convert to prairie, or,
Yeah.
not mowable something. So
Yeah.
so there is, that's kind of my, I just wanted a full disclosure. I still totally support it. But it does have some, some extra considerations you have to think about.
Yeah. Thanks for highlighting that, Steve. And I would totally understand if you participated in a hybrid, something like low mow May. I'm wondering about the village and whether there would be blowback from if, Mike and others on village staff had a similar experience, if there would be a blowback in the future for participating, or if they have the equipment that you didn't have, Steve, and so it wouldn't be as much of an issue.
Yeah, I think if you have it, industrial mowers that you can set at, maybe 8 inches or something like that, you
Mhm.
could still get the benefit. In fact, I believe I should look this up, because there was another agronomist from UW who followed up on the whole no mow May thing. And I think that's why Madison may have amended their resolution, or I don't think they canceled it altogether. But her point was, the highest of the highest grass is not the best. That actually there was a sweet spot if you could maintain it and it was something like an 8 to 10 inch range. So you still get the clovers and stuff in there, but then it doesn't get smothered.
Mhm.
I should dig that up. I'm going to take that as a to do.
Great.
But no, there's no consumer that has even a riding lawnmower you can't set at. I don't think you could set it at 6 or 8 inches high. Maybe 6, but I doubt 8. But Mike's crew could certainly do that.
Okay.
I was going to actually add in that I did not wait till the end of May. What I did is I let the grass grow, And once all of the flowers that we have in our yard started to bud out and bloom, I was like, okay, there's something for the bees and butterflies to eat there. And that's the day that I cut the grass. And it was probably, I think we made it until like the 23rd.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think, you know, honestly, listening to Steve and, you know, and things like that, you know, you kind of got to, I think we have to keep in mind what we're trying to do. We're trying to support pollinators. Well, maybe in Wisconsin, the way things are now, it doesn't have to be, it really, you can kind of give some, maybe we can give some guidelines that say, you know, but once, you know, your flowers start to bloom, you're good. You've done your part.
So maybe there's an educational component of this that's separate from the resolution. So I'm hearing that, and I'm hearing that there's also just some learning that we've done. I'm wondering if Steve and I don't know, John, or if Andy, if you have an interest in doing any kind of research on how to make it better for residents kind of coming out of it. Or, you know, because I think you know, the key here is as you said when we started, Steve, what we want to do is simply we want to allow people to not mow. We want to, you know, put a pause on enforcement of mowing for that time period. So that's the resolution piece. But then if we want to encourage it to be done and done well, then there's probably an education component that folks need to have access to as well. So anything that you can do, that Steve or others, to help, you know, compile something to make it a little more, you know, palatable for folks, that would be terrific.
Yeah.
Andy,
yeah,
I saw
I'm
you.
glad to look after that.
Okay,
So.
terrific.
Because I agree with what you just said, Melissa. The resolution is the suspension of enforcement. You know,
Yeah.
but we still have a responsibility to educate.
Yeah. Okay, I want to give Andy a chance, because Andy, I thought I saw you unmute. Did you want to weigh in on this with anything?
Yeah. So I'm gonna reach out to Mike and ask him for a list of properties that he'd be willing to use as a testing ground for no mow May, just to see if like, what is the net result? Are we saving money for the village? Are we having to spend more money? Is it a wash because they have to, you know, recoup, you know, like they use man hours to knock it back down to original height? Because I think he'd be in support of that, and maybe helping to come up with some very specific visible properties like the village hall, or maybe, you know, like the smaller parks. Raspberry Park, I think, is a good idea, but some of the local smaller parks that maybe even aren't that utilized, that would be a quick knockdown, but could be a place where we have no mow May signs. But I would also agree with taking a look at what the language was last time, and maybe trying to play with the marketing angle to that. The last question I have, and I don't know if Brian can answer this or anybody on the committee, I can't recall who paid for the signs. I don't know if that was Parks and Rec.
The village did.
Just
yeah.
the village. Okay.
No, actually, I think it was Latitude Graphics donated them, didn't they?
Oh, did they?
I believe so.
The village had, well, Brian had, but I guess it was before Brian. Brian, it was just as you were coming on, I think, but Bill had he had a budget for signage, and that he put it together. Latitude might have donated some too, but it was the village that put some money into it.
Yeah, maybe they just gave us a deal. Latitude did. But what was it? You're right. It was like 50 signs.
Yeah, it was 50 signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we need more signs?
I feel like we got rid of them all.
I think they went. People
I
took
think
them.
they all went.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. Okay. I wanna, because we've got a few more things to talk about tonight. I want to move us along, but here's what I'm hearing. we want to get this back in front of the village board for their March meeting. So their March meeting, that's going to take place on March 27th. And we have our March sustainability call on the 8th. I think that's right. And so we'll have an opportunity to just like finalize the language around the resolution. My sense is that the education component doesn't have to be, that can be separate and parallel, but that we don't need to, we can take a little bit more time on the education component. Brian, would you be willing to share a Word version or a Google Doc version of the resolution that we passed last year so that we can try to put some edits in it for this March meeting?
Yeah, I'll find that tomorrow and I'll send it out to everybody.
Okay. Great. And then Steve, you'll do some research around kind of what's that sweet spot so that we can start to put together some educational material. And John, it sounded like maybe you'd be willing to help out on
Yes,
that,
I
on
will.
the education component. And then Andy, you're
Yep.
going to reach out to Mike about locations, right?
Yeah, yep. I'm just gonna be like, what's visible, what's smallish or easy to knock down, and you know, what would you recommend?
Cool. That's great. And then and then Brian, you'll get us the resolution we used last year so we can start playing with that. One more question just on the budget piece. Brian, is there any kind of line item that we might be able to draw from for signs this year, or should we look to try to get fundraising for that elsewhere?
Let me ask Bobby that question tomorrow
Okay.
to see if she's aware of something or how that was set up last year, if the same money might have been allocated this year. I make a note here right now to double check with her tomorrow.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else that folks want to talk about on this tonight?
No, only that I like the fact that you kept mentioning education, and if we as a sustainability group have discovered that there is new and better science, evidence-based, it's up to us to get that out. And so we have the portal through the website, and we can evolve our thinking too. So I think that's kind of one of our responsibilities that we're charged with. So if our thoughts on this change, and maybe it's a mid-Mo May or a whatever, then that's kind of our role. And I think that's a good place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, appreciate that point, Steve. I think that's right on. That was the whole idea of a pilot, right? Test it out, see what works, see how we can tweak it. So yeah.
Yep,
great
absolutely.
point. All right, I'm going to move us on to the next item, which is discussion of the Village Green Energy Resolution. That's the clean energy, 100% clean energy resolution that we passed out of committee last month, and it's taken some twists and turns. It feels a little dramatic. So let me see if I can recount it, and Andy help me out, or Brian help me out. So we passed this resolution out of our committee last month. It went to Jay to go to the village board, and Jay declined to put it on the village board agenda. Jay cited the reasons that he wanted to see more of a plan, and he wanted the costs to be explained, that he wanted a much more brass tacks. He wanted to see much more granularity around how we would get to these goals. So he declined to put it on the agenda. Andy was very quick-footed and scaled it back to simply saying a shorter resolution that would require an energy audit and that would commit us to energy conservation and energy efficiency. And that was, and even though Andy and I believe Michael Pomykowski, there was another trustee who supported it going to the village board for the January board meeting, Jay also declined that to be put on the village board agenda because he cited that it wasn't done within the 10-day required window before the meeting. So that was also declined. So now we have sitting in front of us, and I think this is the second version I'm looking at, or is this the original that's on our screen right now? This one looks.
That's the expert. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the one that's on the board agenda on Monday. This is the second version.
Okay, okay. So Andy was able to get it onto the February board meeting and to the agenda with enough lead time. And I have had the opportunity to sit down and talk to Cody. I can't remember his last name off the top. Trustee Cody, and yes, thank you. And Trustee Cameron Yorkland. Is that how you say his last name? Yep.
Correct.
And in an attempt to help educate them on what it is that we're trying to do. Both of them were amenable. Both of them are, conceptually very much in support of the idea behind what we're trying to do. I think both of them are also wondering how much it's going to cost. So this is a long story, but here we are. There's more. I had the opportunity to sit down with Slipstream, which is an organization that's based here in Madison that works with municipalities and helps them do energy efficiency audits and implementation. They put me in touch with Focus on Energy program, and the Focus on Energy program put me in touch with an engineer who does focus on energy programming for municipalities. So Brian and I had a conversation on Wednesday. No, yesterday. When did we talk? Brian, was that Tuesday?
Tuesday.
With Chris? Tuesday. Yep. We spoke with Chris, who's an engineer with a firm that works with Focus on Energy. And his firm, they would do a free assessment for the village. And so it would be not at the same level as a paid audit, but it would be a walkthrough of village facilities. And he would come out, he would do that walkthrough. He would provide a brief report with some recommendations for how we can lower village energy use, primarily through HVAC and lighting. All right. And then here we are. So from that point, he would need some numbers, like, our MG&E numbers, and going back about 2 years. And Brian is going to get that to him. And then they're going to be working together to have somebody from the firm come out and actually do that assessment. What did I miss? That's the trajectory since our last meeting. Andy, Brian, anything else to add?
I think that was a pretty excellent summary. I was just going to add that I have already put together the Excel spreadsheet and sent that over to the two contacts that Focus on Energy. And then today I did get it confirmed, which ironically I didn't think about it at the time, but I think it's going to be on March 8th, which is the same day as our next sustainability meeting. So I should be able to brief you all after that audit to let you know what took place during the walkthrough and what some of the maybe prelim findings were, if he's willing to share some of that during the whole meeting.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay.
Sorry. So basically you're providing them with numbers from the village, and then they're going to comb through that and make some estimates.
Yeah, so the MG&E bill, you do have an electronic access, and it's interactive. It has a bunch of information pertaining to what your usage is in a given month. I was able to export, and I think it does go back roughly 2 years. So it unfortunately just pulled all the village accounts, but I did tell him which addresses were the facilities that we are looking at doing the audit within, so that he can look and target those for the prelim review before he comes out, get a sense of what our energy usage is and what areas we might be able to enhance or improve upon when he's walking through and looking at those. So first steps are there. He's got the info. I think if he has any questions, he can reach out to me. But I mean, this is a big assist to have Melissa and everybody line this up for the village. I think this could be very, very beneficial.
So I guess then my question is, do we need this, or is
do we need the resolution or the assessment? Which
I mean, yeah, like is the audit going to be free?
So it's so there's he differentiated the assessment versus a paid audit. At one point he said, you know, this is what he does for Focus on Energy. He works with schools and municipalities. He would do a walkthrough. It's not the same as like I forget how the language that he used. Let me see if I can find my notes, but it wouldn't be the same as a cost grade audit is what he said.
Okay.
But it's a good starting point, he says, and it's you know, it's free. And then from there he would be able to, you know, we could go deeper with them if they wanted to, but it's a really good starting point. And it would give us a sense of like where's the low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Okay.
would it be a fair interpretation of all of this to say that, you know, he's going to do a walkthrough, and, you know, hypothetically he looks at the the building on Bourbon Street and says, you know, if you did this and this and this with HVAC and lighting, you could save some money. And then it would be us, our responsibility to then figure out what kind of savings there would be and what the cost would be to get that savings. You know,
I think he could.
upfront cost versus. Am I missing something?
Well, I think that he could give us probably a little bit closer. I think there's like a range of specificity. I think that because he works so often with municipalities and with schools, I think he could probably give us a pretty good sense of the kind of cost savings we could get, especially with lighting. He said like he could do a walkthrough with lighting. He said when he said he was giving some examples and he said, you know, from that assessment, we could just reach out to some lighting, you know, specialists or companies and based on his recommendations in his report and just have that done. The HVAC system would be probably a heavier lift, but you know, and I think that there might be more work to be done there, but I don't know. But he said with lighting, he could just pretty quickly take a look and say, okay, here's, you know, this is going to be a savings for you here and there. And so.
Okay. And so, because that kind of goes back to what Jay was looking for, I believe, which was he didn't want an open-ended resolution without knowing if it was feasible or what it would cost. That was my interpretation of his. You can't say we will do it and and approve that if we don't know if we can.
Yeah. So I mean, to your question, Andy, I thought about this too, and I think the only thing that I'm wondering if we need to change, because I think we should move this resolution. I'm wondering if we need to change it from energy audit to energy assessment to make this, you know, in harmony with what we can get for free from Focus on Energy. Because that would I think satisfy Jay that there's going to be no cost for this assessment. We can decide that we want to do a more in-depth level perhaps later especially if I think what could happen is Chris or I forget who he's potentially working with and who his colleague is, but potentially it could be a free assessment, and then if we want a more in-depth audit, like, you know, with like the blower door thing and the, you know, infrared sensor to find out where we're losing heat. I don't know if that's what he's going to do for this first walkthrough, but I think that would be more like that cost grade audit. So maybe what we say for this resolution is we talk about it in terms of an assessment, because that could at least give us a list of things that we can be working on. Is it if we were to do that? And so I mean, I'm curious what you think about that. And then the second question is it even possible to make that change considering that the documents have already gone out to the board at this point? Or does it matter?
So I think, yeah, we can still, we don't have oh no, the agenda is final at this point.
Yeah.
tomorrow it's going to get published.
And maybe energy audit and assessment, maybe that's like a difference that doesn't make a difference.
Also, like, that's something I could amend in the board meeting on Monday, right?
Okay.
Brian?
Yeah, you could propose that, or you could leave it open-ended and say we are starting with the assessment. Upon getting the results of the assessment, we'll know if the audit is truly the best next step, you know, for where this village needs to go to ensure that energy improvements are gained and we're moving towards, you know, a more green energy village.
I guess that's where I'm. What is the necessity of the audit? Is that sort of dependent on what they find in the walkthrough then?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's my guess. That would be
Okay.
my guess, is that we could have this assessment and he could be like, okay, I did a walkthrough. But to get into some real level of specificity, I'm going to have to come back with, you know, this machine or that machine and spend, you know, half a day here. So that's kind of my understanding of how the audit differs from the assessment.
Okay.
And that we may or may not need that level of audit. Right now, it's just really helpful to have somebody from Focus on Energy come out and say, oh, okay, here's what you guys are doing. Here's what we can recommend based on what other municipalities are using and you know, what we know works.
Yeah, my guess is like Melissa was stating, if he's coming through and he's doing this for free for the village, he's going to be walking through, he's going to take a real quick look, he's going to look at the ceiling, and in his mind he's going to say, I can see right here that this is a less efficient bulb than what I can get on the market right now. And knowing, looking at this, what it probably puts out in terms of energy usage compared to what an LED equivalent would be right now, I can estimate you're probably going to save X amount of dollars. I don't think he's going to get into the extent of like he was asking, do I know if any of our buildings have boilers? And, you know, I'm like, I don't know. I haven't, you know, I don't know what's in our wastewater treatment plant and some of that stuff. So, you know, I think he might walk through, be able to see it, guesstimate a range of age and say, you know, if you just even updated this particular, you know, whatever main equipment piece to something more modern and you probably could have, and then another insert X amount of, you know, efficiency gain and cost reduction on a monthly basis. I think if they do the actual audit, they're probably going to be looking at that piece of equipment and saying, yeah, this thing is the energy hog. This is the real reason your bills are so high. And they're spending time assessing the actual piece of equipment to determine, is it still working at its peak efficiency, or is it is, you know, running on its last legs. That's why it's taking so much energy and why your bills are so high.
That's excellent information. We still do not have an estimate on what an audit would cost then.
Right. That's right. And I tried to get that kind of information. I think we couldn't know Andy until he was there in the assessment, until he understands, okay, this is how many buildings I'd be looking at. This is how big the buildings are. I don't think we could get that number on an audit. I was, when I had the conversation with Slipstream and I asked about an audit, the woman that I spoke to, Jeanette Lazak, said, I said, you know, just give me a sense, like, is it like 10,000 or 100,000 or like where on that spectrum? And she said, probably closer to 10,000. But you know, that's not super helpful for the village board.
I would say leave it as is then.
Okay.
And and then I have to think about how I would play this. What was the general response to you? Well, we can talk about that later offline before the meeting, I suppose.
Yeah. They want it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the other trustees that I spoke to are supportive. They want to know that it's not going to be crazy expensive. And I think ultimately, and I talked to them both before I talked to Slipstream and before I talked to the Focus on Energy, and then before I talked to Chris at the engineer. And so I I don't know the answer to that based on, I think they'd love numbers, but they also, I think, really appreciate. So first of all, I want to say both of them expressed a lot of appreciation for the sustainability committee. They felt like the sustainability committee does a lot of work and that they were both very motivated to support what we're doing. They just want to make sure it's not going to be cost prohibitive. So Andy, I know that's like a squishy response, but yeah, without hard numbers, it's hard to know where the votes are gonna, our vote count right now.
I have to say I really like the idea of the assessment for a very strange reason. You guys might think it's strange. Is I think it's the first step in selling energy efficiencies and efficiency gains and working toward the wording in the original resolution. I think if an assessment is done, and even if it's just a very basic, and we walk away with somebody saying, on lighting, we can save 30%. And on heating and cooling, we can save, 50%. I'm making up numbers completely. We might not know what it's going to cost to do that, but I think the board is going to listen to that and go, I want to know more.
Yeah, I think the trick is, John, that we won't have that before we're trying to get this in front of them. But I agree. I totally agree. If we could get that assessment sooner rather than later, that'd be really helpful.
Well, it's going to the board as is. So if
right. That's right, Andy.
If I can get to approve an audit that we don't know what costs, I'm going to try that. If I can't that, at least I'm going to get them to approve the assessment with the declarations included that are, cost neutral.
Okay.
I'm saying, yeah.
And Andy, I plan to be at the village board meeting on Monday night too, and we'll use some public comment period to make the case for it as well, and to help hopefully jog Cameron and Cody's memory that they sat at length with me and talked about the virtues of it. So hopefully they'll be in support of it at the time.
The things that I think are gonna require answers are gonna be the very last component, which is the village will develop a resiliency plan to deal with anticipated changes associated with climate change. And I think they're going to be like, well, who is in charge of that? Whose plate does that fall upon? Obviously, it would go through the sustainability committee eventually, and then probably up to. But that's definitely something that people are going to wonder about, because that potentially has maybe there's a cost associated with creation of that. The rest of them, though, I think are pretty straightforward. It's like, we're just trying to do what's right and save the village some money and be sustainable.
Is there anything you think that a community member might be able to say on that last point that could allay concerns?
I think just connecting it to the weather events that we've had, I don't know if we're just geographically unlucky. I've only lived here for 5 years, but I've never noticed a place that has had so many extreme weather events in such a short period of time. And so I think that anecdotal, urgency from residents would be helpful.
Cool. Okay. John, Steve, anybody else plan to come to Monday night's village board meeting?
Do you want company?
Yes.
Okay.
The more the merrier. We got to have a strong showing.
Okay.
Yeah. I plan to give public
6
comment. I
o'clock?
think the more 6 o'clock, I think the more that village board members hear from human beings, residents, and that's something that Cameron made sure to tell me that it meant a lot when people reached out to him and had a conversation, and when they showed up to meetings too. So I think it'd be really helpful to hear additional voices in support of this resolution.
I'd recommend you get there early because ATVs are on the agenda for this month.
Oh no!
Andy beat me to it. Yeah, I was just gonna say this one. Bring your popcorn. It could be interesting.
What's the topic, if I may ask?
The ATV topic.
Yes, the ATV topic.
There's two proposals that they're bringing forward, expanding the hours within the village for ATV UTV use, and then also eliminating a component of the ordinance right now that states that the route needs to be an A to B route for anyone using an ATV, which they're looking to do away with.
Huh. Okay.
So, no.
Wait,
I was about to go off on a tangent. I'm not going to go there.
I'm gonna rein you in.
I was going to say, I
Good job.
could explain
Good
a lot
job,
more, but I
John.
don't think this is the place for that.
Save it for Monday. Save it for Monday.
And just where does the resolution fall on the agenda compared to the ATV thing?
I've changed the agenda no less than 6 times over the last 2 days, so I think it's
gosh.
maybe the 4th item right now, but don't quote me on that. I think it's 4. I tried to put it as close to the top as I could after a few other things that needed people to be present for related to bills and approvals with the school district and stuff.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, so this is really just an update. We're not going to recommend any changes. I'm not hearing anybody suggest any changes to this resolution as we're looking at it right now. And we'll be there to support it, and we'll see where the conversation goes. Is there anything else on this resolution? Yeah, Brian.
So one thing I was going to just say too, the one added bonus of the audit or assessment, but probably more so the audit, would be if you were able to finally get somebody in here to look at this, which we obviously know the village doesn't have the personnel or the time to do on its own. But if we had a professional come in and do that, and they can assess, hey, if you aren't able to switch these things out due to cost, and maybe we find out how much these costs are, you might be able to make a better pitch down the road for going forward and seeking out grants to secure solar panels to alleviate these costs, then maybe we can get more board buy-in. So, hey, we're not going to spend the money to upgrade these, but if we do solar panels, that will immediately offset it. And there are grants available to do that. Let's go after those.
Yeah, right. And Brian, can you also, on this topic, a slight tangent maybe, but Chris mentioned the Office of Energy Innovation, the Wisconsin state grants that just closed. The application process closed on January 30th, and we missed that opportunity. But he thought it might open up again maybe later this year. And that is a grants program that would be right up our alley, and it's helping municipalities pay for solar, pay for energy efficiency upgrades, and things along those lines. So just a kind of bookmark as you're thinking about grant writing, that would be something for us to be watching for later this year.
Perfect.
Anything else on this resolution?
It looks like we're 10th on the agenda of 13 as of right now.
Ouch. It's gonna be a long night. Okay. And that's gonna be at the library, or is it the village hall? And are you still suggesting folks Zoom in?
It's at Village Hall. You can attend by Zoom as well, or if you're going to attend in person, I mean, if you're going to make public comment, then you're going to need to be there at the beginning of the meeting. If you're just going to be there for the topic itself, then like Andy said, it's probably there's no sense in you showing up right at 6. You probably are going to be closer to 7:30 or later before that's discussed.
So potentially you could make public comment and then go home and Zoom in an hour and later.
Or public
Yeah.
comment from Zoom. Yeah, whatever, either or.
Okay. Cool. All right. Anything else on this topic?
Oh, I have one question for Brian. Once, and this is just a refresher for me. Once a motion is made, like say someone makes a motion to approve as written, right? And get into the nitty gritty of it. Like we can always change the motion before we vote, correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure so that my approach is sound.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great. I'm gonna take a peek. So I am wondering, it's 7:04 now, and I think the next item on the agenda is, or I move things around, but the next item on the agenda is sustainability plan implementation. I am kind of curious for folks, both John, you're driving, Andy, it doesn't look like you're driving anymore, but what's the will of the group? Do we want to jump into the sustainability plan implementation and take a look at a couple more of these items, or do you want to, we're also at a stopping point, do we want to adjourn for the night? What's the will of the group? How you feeling?
I'd say the adjournment, because it's just getting into the plan with 10 minutes ish remaining. Not to mention, I think what we're planning for with NOMO and the audit are on track with the overarching plan as it is. So that's my vote.
Yep,
Thanks,
I
Andy.
agree. Steve agrees.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
As scintillating as this conversation is, I need to listen to some music.
All right. Well, with that, I take a motion to adjourn.
Steve will motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Steve.
Second.
Is there a second? Great. Okay. All in favor of adjourning at 7:06, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Brian, if you have a minute, I want to hang out with you for a totally unrelated thing. It has to do with Scouts. So can I keep you? And anybody else who wants to talk about Cub Scouts, you're welcome to hang out.